the world wakes up in a cold sweat, nursing the mother of all financial hangovers. We enter the year in a state of suspended animation, caught between the wreckage of the old economic order and the terrifying uncertainty of a new normal. The air is thick with the scent of de-icing fluid and hope, a sensory duality defined by a plane landing in the Hudson River and a new president taking the stage in Washington. There is a perceptible vibration in the global atmosphere. The Great Recession is no longer just a headline. It is the oxygen we breathe. In the frozen streets of DC, 2 million people are gathering to witness a handover of history. In a shadowy corner of the internet, a mysterious figure named Satoshi Nakamoto is mining a Genesis block of code that will eventually challenge the very concept of money. But the hook is set. 2009 is the year of the grand pivot. It is the moment the empire of debt attempts to reinvent itself as the economy of innovation. Before the first quarter ends, a global pandemic of a new flu strain will send the world into a surgical mask frenzy, and the king of pop will take his final bow events that will paralyze the cultural machine and force us to reckon with our icons and our immunity. The countdown has shifted from a free fall to a climb. The State of the Planet in 2009 is a study in artificial support and digital acceleration. We are living in the definitive real-time awakening. This is the year Twitter moves from a microblogging experiment to a geopolitical weapon. We are no longer checking the news. We are living in the stream. The tech level is pushing toward the mobile ecosystem. The launch of the iPhone 3GS and the explosion of the App Store proves that the software revolution is now portable and permanent. We are obsessed with the status update, the ability to broadcast the now to a global audience of strangers. Economically, the world is a sovereign life support system. Governments are pumping trillions of dollars into stimulus packages to prevent a total systemic collapse. The G20 replaces the G8 as the primary forum for global economic cooperation, signaling a power shift toward emerging markets like China and India. In the United States, the auto industry is on the brink of extinction, saved only by a controversial government bailout. The cultural mood is nostalgic gloom. We are retreating into the familiar: vampires, 3D spectacles, and the comfort of the virtual world. Geopolitically, the world is a theater of hope and hardship. The Obama mania that swept the globe is meeting the cold reality of 2 wars and a resurgent Taliban. The Great Firewall of China is thickening as Beijing blocks Facebook and Twitter following the Urumqi riots, setting the stage for a bifurcated internet. The climate is sounding a diplomatic alarm. 2009 is the year of the Copenhagen Summit, a fractured attempt to rewrite the rules of the atmosphere that ends in a lukewarm accord. We are a civilization of constant refreshes, living in a state of high-definition recovery, while the fundamental pillars of our banks and our environment are being shored up by emergency measures. We are connected, anxious, and finally realizing that stability was an antique concept. The spark that changes the narrative trajectory of the year occurs in a splash of freezing river water and a masterclass in poise. January 15, 2009. U.S. Airways Flight 1549 hits a flock of geese and loses both engines over the most densely populated city on Earth. This is the moment competence becomes the global hero. Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger glides the Airbus A320 into the Hudson River, and all 155 people on board survive. This single event makes the rest of the year's focus on reliability and institutional trust inevitable. It triggers a moment of collective grace. In a year defined by institutional failure, failing banks, failing markets, failing wars, the miracle on the Hudson is the antidote to cynicism. This is the spark because it proved that human agency could still overcome systemic disaster. It was the first viral event of the Twitter age, famously broken by a passenger on a ferry with a camera phone, bypassing the traditional news cycle. The shockwaves lead to a cult of the expert that we are still analyzing in 2026. Why does this matter? Because it gave us a glimmer of competence in a world of chaos. It proved that preparation is the only defense against the unpredictable. The event leads to a new era of aviation safety protocols and a fundamental shift in how we consume crisis in real time. This is the moment the world's panic was briefly replaced by awe. The world is no longer just a place of danger. It is a stage for the prepared, and 2009 is the year we saw what happens when the pilot doesn't blink. While the Hudson provided a miracle, The political architecture of the world is being redrawn by a transfer of power and a cry for reform. In January 2009, Barack Obama is inaugurated as the 44th President of the United States. This is the peak of the Hope era. It represents a demographic and cultural sea change, promising a post-partisan world that the system will ultimately reject. In the Middle East, the Iranian Green Movement ignites following a disputed election in June. This is the first Twitter revolution. It represents a digital defiance against theocratic control. The image of Neda Agha Sultan dying in the streets of Tehran becomes the visual pulse of the global struggle for transparency. Contrast this with the East, where the Sri Lankan civil war ends in a bloody finality, a decisive and violent victory for the state that leaves the international community in a moral stupor. In Europe, the Lisbon Treaty finally comes into force, creating a permanent president for the EU. 2009 is a year of resets and resentments. From the handshake in Cairo to the protest in Tehran and the Tea Party birth in the United States, the global leadership is being forced to account for a new populism. It is a world where electoral mandates are being challenged by digital dissidents. The political moves of 2009 are about expectation management. The leaders of the world are building bridges of rhetoric to cross a chasm of reality. This is the moment the establishment tried to look young, unaware that the digital youth were already building a world without them. The social energy of 2009 is a requiem for the 20th century and a lullaby for the 21st. In June, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, passes away. It is a cultural seismic event that crashes the internet, proving that legacy fame is still the most powerful currency we have. We are a society obsessed with the funeral of the idol. We watch the televised memorial in global synchronicity, turning a private loss into a public performance. But the social fabric is also being rewoven by a digital addiction. Farmville launches on Facebook and suddenly 32 million people are tending virtual crops. This is the gamification of reality. We are seeing the rise of the casual connection. Pop culture meets social change as Glee and Modern Family launch, proving that saccharine inclusion is the new narrative language for a fragmented audience. Culturally, we are in the era of the vampire and Avatar. We are obsessed with immortal romance and technological escapism. We are the generation of the retina display, the realization that visual fidelity is the new truth. Socially, 2009 is the year the follow became a measure of worth. From the Kanye West VMA intrusion that proved interruption is the ultimate marketing strategy to the Susan Boyle viral moment that proved underdog stories are the global algorithm's favorite food, we use the digital square to find unity in the viral. How did the average person interact with the world? Through a status box that asked, "What's on your mind?" We were the audience of a world that was always broadcasting. And in 2009, the comment section became the new frontier of discourse. By the spring of 2009, the biological vulnerability of the century reaches a point of global saturation. In April, a new strain of H1N1 swine flu emerges in Mexico and the United States, initiating the first global pandemic of the 21st century. This is the medical escalation that proves our total connectivity is also our total exposure. The image of empty streets in Mexico City and the thermal scanners at international airports becomes the visual fever of a global panic. This escalation extends far beyond the hospital ward. It is a psychological and logistical tremor felt across the global supply chain. Pork exports crater and global tourism takes a sudden dive. Simultaneously, the piracy crisis off the coast of Somalia escalates with the hijacking of the Maersk, Alabama. This asymmetric escalation pits high-tech shipping against low-tech insurgency, a total paralysis of a vital sea lane that proves primitive tactics can still dismantle a modern infrastructure. In the United States, the economic escalation reaches a friction point with the foreclosure crisis, a structural ignition that sees millions of families evicted from their homes. The foundations of the American dream are eroding as tent cities become a new urban feature. We are witnessing a multi-front invasion. The volatility of the virus, the violation of the sea lanes, and the decay of the middle class are all converging. The global system is no longer just tired. It is undergoing a systemic shock. We are living through a contagious disaster where the old protections, the vaccine, the Navy, and the mortgage, are being revealed as paper shields. This period represents a total reevaluation of our biological and financial security. In the shadow of the pandemic, the highs of 2009 represent the incredible vision of the human eye. This is the year NASA launches the Kepler Space Telescope. It is a scientific miracle, the moment we move from guessing about other worlds to finding them. It is a reminder that while we are fighting for survival on Earth, we are hunting for Earths in the stars. We are moving from speculating on the void to mapping the multitude. But the wins are also digital and infrastructural. In 2009, the Genesis block of Bitcoin is mined. It is a cryptographic victory for decentralization. The moment the software of value is born, it is the death of the centralized monopoly on trust. We are also seeing the technological leap of the Large Hadron Collider, which finally restarts and achieves its first high-energy collisions, signaling the Big Bang of particle physics that will define our 2026 understanding of reality. In the world of human achievement, 2009 sees the completion of the International Space Station's major construction phase. It is a collaborative win, the most complex engineering project in history. A lab in the sky that proves our ability to cooperate is greater than our instinct to conflict. We see human resilience in the rescue of Captain Phillips, a tactical spectacle by Navy SEALs that proves our refusal to yield is our global calling card. Technologically, the win is the smartphone apps. The launch of Uber Cab, Uber, and WhatsApp in 2009 proves that the species is ready to replace the dispatcher with the interface. We are building direct pipes between need and supply. Even the environmental high is found in the global momentum toward electric transport. The unveiling of the Tesla Model S prototype in 2009 proves that the market is finally ready for a seductive alternative to oil. These highs are the proof that our innovation is our legacy. We can find planets, we can code money, and we can conquer the deep. 2009 is the year we proved that the species is still aspiring, even when the planet is ailing. The Ledger of the Displaced in 2009 records a sequence of societal fractures and quiet disappearances that revealed the absolute human cost of a world in flux. The year begins with the Ghazal conflict, Operation Cast Lead. Not just a tragedy of borders, but a total shattering of the civilian grid in one of the most densely populated places on Earth. This is followed by the L'Aquila earthquake in Italy. The seismic betrayal becomes a moral embargo on urban safety. It is a reminder that a few seconds of lithospheric shifting can effectively delete a medieval city's soul, freezing the lives of thousands and costing the global heritage a billion-dollar void. The ledger expands with the Air France Flight 447 disappearance, an aviation ghost in the mid-Atlantic. For days, the silent ocean serves as a monument to technological limits, as a state-of-the-art aircraft vanishes from the radar, redefining the nightmare of connectivity. Simultaneously, the Sri Lankan Civil War finale sees the drowning of a rebellion in a sea of fire, an industrial massacre that erases tens of thousands of lives in the no-fire zones. These are not merely headlines, they are systemic scars that prove our international law is dangerously toothless. The structural lows manifest in the Madoff sentencing, a financial beheading that sees the architect of the Ponzi scheme sentenced to 150 years, proving that wealth was as vulnerable to greed as any other matter. In the social sector, the death of Michael Jackson sees the world grieve a paradox, a digital mourning for a man who is both a cultural god and a human warning. From the Fort Hood shooting, where a failure in internal security turned a sanctuary into a killing floor, to the victims of the swine flu who became the faces of a global frailty. The Ledger of 2009 is a record of certainties ending. It is the part of the script where the modern world is revealed to be a series of unstable platforms. Whether it is a house in the suburbs, a plane in the sky, or a life in a war zone, 2009 is the year we realized the safety of the system was an illusion. 2009 is a mandatory chapter in the history books because it represents the end of the analog monopoly on power, currency, and culture. This was the year the institutional gatekeeper was officially bypassed. What died in 2009 was the top-down narrative. Between the Twitter-fueled Iranian Green Movement and the miracle on the Hudson being reported by a passenger before the wires, the world realized that the official source was now secondary to the real-time witness. What was born this year was the architecture of autonomy. The mining of the Bitcoin Genesis block and the launch of the App Store economy proved that individual tools could replace state systems. 2009 mattered because it was the year the future stopped being a project of the elite and started being a product for the masses. It proved that a pilot could save a plane without a control tower's script, A song could crash the global servers of Google and Twitter simultaneously, and a code could invent money out of thin air. We interpret 2009 as the year the social contract was digitized. The financial recalibration, the biological vulnerability, and the digital sovereignty were no longer experiments. They were the new ground. 2009 is the year we stopped waiting for the news and started becoming the stream. It was the year of the grand pivot, where the physical recovery and the virtual frontier finally became one unified path. How does 2009 dictate your life right now? Look at your digital wallet. The Bitcoin revolution and the decentralized finance you use today are the direct descendants of the Genesis block mined in 2009. The gig economy, how you order your transport and your food, is the legacy of the Uber and WhatsApp launches 16 years ago. The political reality of today, the polarized digital square, and the direct-to-consumer populism is a direct result of the Twitter revolution in Iran and the social media campaigns of 2009. We live in a world where personal branding is the primary currency, a system that was template-built by the VMA spectacle and the Susan Boyle viral moment. The public health policy of today is the legacy of the H1N1 pandemic and the logistical scramble of 2009. We live in a world where mobile computing and the App Store governance are the only ecosystems, a reality that was validated by the iPhone 3GS revolution. Even your science, the exoplanet mapping, and the quantum physics was hardwired by the Kepler and LHC restarts in that year. You aren't just watching history, you are living in the recalibration that was opened in 2009. The pilots of that year are the history of today, but their poise is still running our world. 2009 was the year the pivot was perfected. We found the planets in the dark, but we lost our icons in the light. We built the digital currency, but we watched the old banks beg for their lives. It was a year of the recovery and the requiem, a chapter where the species looked at the recession and decided to reinvent. The archive is closing on the year of the Hudson and the H1N1, but the vault is just opening on the year the secrets would truly leak. Join us for the next exposure, 2010. If this year surprised you, challenged what you thought you knew, or reminded you of something you lived through, leave a comment with what it meant to you. If this series helps you understand the present through the past, consider liking the video. And if you want every year exposed, subscribe to the channel. History isn't just something we watch, it's something we interpret, and something many of us lived through. Another year exposed is coming soon. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.